today we have a great crew for you. You are not going to believe the author we have today. One of my new favorite authors, USA Today and New York Times bestselling author, A.L. Jackson. If you are new to A.L. Jackson, you are in for a treat. I absolutely love her newest book, and we're going to talk about that today. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Amy, or A.L. Jackson, and I write romance. I love doing it. Like, I'm amazed every single morning that I get to get up and write these stories for all of you to enjoy. I live in Arizona. I love the heat, hanging out by the pool with my family. Basically, that's it. I write, read, and hang out with my family and friends and my dog.
Awesome. Well, we're happy you're here, and I am glad that you wrote this book. So this is number one, and I'm hoping it's number one, and that means we're going to have lots more in the Redemption Hill series. Is that
Yes, that is true. There's going to be, if you've read it already, you know, you're introduced to the Lawson brothers. So it'll follow the three Lawson brothers through their kind of escape to Redemption Hills and what their lives look like after their upbringing in Los Angeles, getting away from the MC that they were a part of. So we have that, and then maybe a little bit more to come after that, because there were some characters that were in the first book that people were like, I have to have. So I may write more.
Well, I really hope that you write more. When you were kind of giving glimpses into these brothers, I was like, oh my gosh, I really hope this is what I think it is. And I'm also a sucker for like a great MC series and just, more on that. And I mean, we don't do spoilers over here. I don't want to ruin it for everybody because you guys, I'm going to pull her book up here in the carousel. It is so good. And it's Single Dad, Enemies to Lovers, Eden and Trent. Love all the characters. You did such a good job with a cover too. I am pretty picky on if things match up, and gosh, you really did nail it.
Awesome.
You nailed it. And
yeah,
also,
it was hard for that one.
I don't know if you guys are, and there's no shame in the game if you're a Kindle girl. I'm a Kindle girl too. But her books are absolutely gorgeous and top-notch, top-shelf quality. So I want to show you an example why. At the beginning of every chapter, she has a beautiful page that it's written in each character. And I love that flow of it too. I actually did a live with another author earlier this week, and she listed you as her favorite author right now and just talked about books. And we were talking about you. And she just talked about your flow of your writing and how just amazing it is with the story. And your books are just such beautiful quality. I mean, just, you guys, I don't know if you can see just how gorgeous they are, and really durable too. Sometimes I read a book. I just got a book in the mail the other day, and it kind of fell apart. It was a hardcover too. Oh, really? And yours is just such good quality. And so if you are a Kindle girl, it's great on Kindle. But if you want the paperback, gosh, I have like 6 of your books in my cart right now that I'm about to buy. So I'm normally a Kindle person, but I love your books. So you write emotional, sexy, heart-filled stories about bad boys. Would you consider that an accurate description?
I would say so, yes, because my guys always start out a little bit bad and usually have a past that they're, trying to either run from or make up for or are in the middle of, depending on what the story is. And I just love writing. And it's funny because I, named the series Redemption Hills because I write stories about redemption all the time. That's kind of like the theme of my, the stories I tell is like forgiveness and finding who you are outside of like the mistakes you've made in your life. So, and then I love to write a love story around that. Cause I always find that, to me, like finding love and peace within who you are with yourself and somebody that comes alongside you and feels the same thing about you, like accepts you for who you are and, sees the good things in you. I love writing that. So that's kind of my theme when I sit down at the computer and start writing something.
And for those of you guys that may be new, I know some of you guys watching, Susan watching says, hi, Amy, I love you and all of your books. Thanks for watching.
Susan.
If you guys are new to A.L. Jackson, this is going to be a really good series because just the lay of the land that you've laid for this with the whole backstory. I don't want to give anything away, but it's so hard not to because there was so much depth to these characters, and you really did lay amazing track for future books, which I hate to put pressure on authors, but We need some more.
Yes, you'll get some more. And it'll be, like I like to set kind of a backstory, and I usually don't go back to the exact same thing with each book, but they end up intertwining somehow. And so you'll definitely get pieces of what you see and Give Me a Reason that'll flow through with the other books through the series.
Love a good Easter egg.
Yes.
Easter egg. So this is your newest, and it's definitely the gateway drug to more books for you. So what are you currently working on?
Right now I'm working on Say It's Forever, which is Judd's book, which is the second brother so I kind of wrote it by age. So Trent's the oldest, then Judd, and then Logan. So they'll get their stories in order. So I'm working on Judd's story, and I'm about 80% through it. Super excited about it. It was hard to move on from writing Give Me a Reason because I loved Trent and Eden so much, and Gage. And of course they're in this story, but like to move on from like when you're so wrapped up in these characters and like they're so alive in my mind. So it was like a trial for me as an author to like move on, but like finally I'm totally feeling Judd's story and super excited about it. And I don't know, the whole thing, I'm just so excited to write this whole series.
You had some amazing twists in Give Me a Reason. And you kind of ripped my heart out a couple times, and then I had to put it back in and keep going. And I read the entire day. My kids had to just fend for themselves and, figure out dinner on their own. But those are good days.
Sorry, kids.
In a book, you're wrapped up in it. So how did you get started writing?
So I used to, I never really thought about being an author, actually writing novels. I wrote poetry in college. I've always loved words, but didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. I actually thought I wanted to be a journalist when I was in high school because I think I wanted to write, but I never really, to me, being a novelist was so far outside of a reasonable goal to set for myself. And so I never pursued it. And I love just sitting and dabbling with words and notebooks and that sort of thing. And then I had kids and, life just happened. And I stopped reading. Maybe I read in 10 years, 2 books or something like that. Wow. And then as my kids started to get older, I started reading again. And then that spark for words kind of started showing up again. And I all of a sudden just sat down one night and started writing a story that popped in my head. And I wrote it just for fun. I didn't tell anybody about it. And then when I was finished, my best friend read it because she, I told her that I was writing this book, and she loved it and was like, you have to get this published. So I kind of just never stopped after that.
Oh, that is awesome. So you have a lot of other series that are awesome. I wanted to ask you about Falling Stars. Is that, what's that one about? That's next on my TBR. It's in my card, actually.
So that is Rockstar Romances. And again, the same depth, and you'll get lots of twists, and it has a little edge of suspense in each of the books. They can each be read as a standalone, but it goes and tells the story of the band Carolina George. So each of the members of that band get their own book. And it's actually a spinoff of Bleeding Stars, which is my original rock stars, which is the band Sunder, and all of those guys each got a book as well. And so there were different characters that were introduced that people loved and wanted to know more about. So I was able to take that and spin it and tell those stories as well.
So do you recommend starting with Bleeding Stars and then going on into Falling Stars?
They can be read by themselves, but if you want the full experience, I would definitely start with Bleeding Stars, because you'll see Carolina George showing up in different books. We don't know a lot about them, but they'll show up on stage in a scene where you're oh, Carolina George is playing in the background. And that kind of happens through 3 series of mine. Okay. Just I love the Easter eggs, people are popping in there. And then there is a sister of one of the Sunder band members that you're going to meet and Where Lightning Strikes, and she is one of the main leads in the Falling Stars series. So it kind of just all ties together.
I love that. And I loved Eden's character. I like how she was gonna go to church now. It's I
was like, how can I make these the most opposite people ever?
I know, I'm reading it laughing, and I'm just picturing it, and I'm like, what? Susan also said, those are awesome series. I love your Rockstar Romances. Well, I'm excited because this is the only book I've read of yours, and I'm so excited to read more. So basically you're telling me I have 10 books now that
yes,
I can just
there's so many. But yeah, start with Bleeding Stars. It actually, A Stone in the Sea is my only cliffhanger I've ever written, but it just turned into this most the threads that I had to weave together to tell this story. So it's Stone in the Sea and Dreading to Breathe are cover one couple, and it's like 2 giant full-length books. And then the rest of them are each standalones after that.
Well, then it's going to be a very unproductive weekend is what you're
Well, I hope you love them.
Well, I love this one so much. Where do you get your inspiration for your books from?
I don't really have a good answer for that. I get asked that a lot, and it's kind of just, I just sit down and start writing. Like I kind of see a vague picture of characters and I start books, and then I start over because I'll just like kind of write out ideas that are kind of popping in. And then by the time I get to like 30,000 words, then kind of a story takes hold and I'm like, oh, that's the story I want to tell. So really it's just sitting and playing with words and like a vibe and looking at pictures and kind of, setting the groundwork of what the story might be. And then I go from there. I kind of get inspired by just sitting and writing, and then the story starts to take shape.
Ooh, I mean, that's kind of cool. That sounds hard for me.
It's hard. Yeah. I usually want to quit. I usually quit writing like 10 times during each book, but.
Oh. Is that the hardest part for you, is like the 30,000 word mark?
Yeah. Cause it's like, it's because for me, my stories are character driven. Like I try to write a really good plot around it, but the focus is always like what the characters are feeling and experiencing in their past and what they're trying to, overcome in their lives. And so it's kind of like starting to hear those voices. So when I first sit down and they're a brand new character, so like I was saying with Jed's story, it was hard to get going on that because it took me a while to like hear his voice and what his past looked like, as a child. Like how was he shaped, and because he and Trent had the same experiences. So like how was he such a different person than Trent was? So being able to like get in there and get in his head and like let those scenes start to like pop up, like, oh, I bet that happened to him, kind of thing. Now I'm rambling. I'm sorry. This is my author brain.
I have something to tell you. I read a lot of self-help too. Like for years, that's all I did was tons and tons and tons of self-help and lots of like psychology stuff. And I've always read fiction too, but kind of worked on that for a long time. And one of the quotes that I heard, interestingly enough, I can't remember who said it, was you can have five kids that live in the same house and they all grow up with very different childhoods and very different experiences. They can have the same thing happen to all of them, but they all have 5 different experiences.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
So that's the coolest. I mean, I don't know that that's cool what happened with their family.
Right. I always take my characters through the ringer, right?
That was the part where my heart went through the ringer and you like ripped it out of my body and stepped on it and stabbed it. And
I think I know what part you're talking about.
And I'm like, can his dad be any more of a monster? Yes, he can. Yes, he can. And so you can take so much from that childhood for all the kids and all the different ages that they were and all the different things they went through with that and really run with it. There's so many possibilities, and that's right. I'm so excited. Do you have a tentative date for that?
I'm hoping that it'll be early 2022.
Yeah.
So, but I try to give myself a little bit of time because we have the audios, like it's amazing to me how many audio listeners there are out there. And so we make sure to have plenty of time to get the book to the narrator so they can do their performance and get all that put together as well. So that way the audio, the paperback, and the ebook all come out at the same time.
Oh, that is so cool. Who does your narrations?
So I work with Lyric Audiobooks, and they're the production company, and they are contracted with a ton of different narrators. So I have a rep there, and she just helps to set me up with, different narrators that might fit into each project. I work a lot with Andy Art and Zachary Weber just because I have a really distinct writing style and they are really good at narrating it. So I work with them. And then with this book, I had new narrators I hadn't worked with before who were amazing. So they just work with a lot of really amazing narrators and set us up, and kind of, I give them the script and they go with it. And when they come back, it's just this beautiful masterpiece at the end.
Now
so
I want
it is great.
Maybe I'll start Bleeding Stars on audio.
Oh, they're so awesome. It's so fun to do the narration because it's like, you have the words, but then you also then get the experience through the narrator's voice, like their interpretation of it.
That's awesome. Okay, well, now you've sold me. I think I'm gonna start on that. That'll be my walking book. I always have a book for when I'm walking.
I love it.
Yeah.
That is great.
So what advice do you have for aspiring writers? You also have products on your website too. And do you have those around that you could show us?
Oh, so like the plotting.
Yes.
I probably have one here. Okay, so I got
I thought those were really cool.
Okay. Wrong side. So I have this Set It Straight series Bible. So I'm a mess when I'm writing. So I kind of just designed this to like, I've had to go back and reread like books earlier in a series because I can't remember like a character's eye color or like the way they talked or whatever. So this I just kind of put together because I like to write things down. See the little cute stuff in there. Just to keep everything organized, all that kind of biz. But my favorite one, and this is a disaster because I've written all over it.
That means it's well loved. I love it.
So this is the plotting manual. This one's giant.
So it's aljackson.com. I don't want to tell them wrong, but
it's AL Jackson Author.
aljacksonauthor.com.
Yeah.
Yes, and you guys can grab those there. So yeah, show us your messy one, just a glimpse.
So there's this one.
Your passion.
And it's like I have the worst handwriting in the world. So it's just like I've scribbled all in like the different pieces, like oh my gosh, putting this together. Oops, wrong side. My camera's opposite on this one.
Yeah,
so
that's okay.
I don't even know how that I can read any of these things, but it's more just like when I write something, I kind of can commit it to memory better. It's almost like when you listen to music and you learn the lyrics for no reason. So anyway, those are there. But like, so advice for aspiring authors, I just, I would say like, if you feel like you can't not write, then you're meant to write. It's just kind of to me, it's like an emotional venture. Like you're pouring yourself into a story and it's going to be hard. There's going to be so many obstacles. You know, some people find success quickly. Other people, it takes years and years. But if you have that, you know, driving passion to write, just keep doing it, you know, and find where you fit.
Have you ever watched that show, The Queen's Gambit?
Just in the background. My husband watched it. And so I kind of just was like catching pieces of it in the background.
I don't know if you ever saw the scene where she would lay in bed and play chess on the ceiling.
Yes.
So I've always written stories in my head since I was a little kid. I just thought everyone did that, by the way. And I would write all these stories in my head. They're not on paper. They're just in my head. Like
just in your head. That's amazing.
Then I was telling my husband about one day. I'm like, don't you do that? And he's like, no. Like,
definitely not.
Like, you guys do that? And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh.
Sounds like you need to write a book, Erin.
Just me? No, I do have a few written. I just haven't published anything yet. I write for fun.
That's awesome.
Just for fun. And that's why I liked your plotter packs and your Set It Straight series Bible, all that. I thought that was really cool because they need to maybe come out of my head.
Yeah, it does help, you know, just to keep organized and for me, like I'm writing everything on the computer, but if I get stuck on like if you read my books, you know that I toil over every single sentence. So if I get stuck on one, it's easier for me to like write it out, to like try to get that thought. And then it kind of like breaks up that writer's block that I'm having.
Your flow in your books are just so good. There's not really a stop. They just flow like a story, like you're watching a movie unfold. And which these would make really cool series. I'm just gonna say that would be cool.
Like that would be amazing.
Yes. So awesome. Well, where else can we find you other than aljacksonauthor.com? Where else can we find you?
I'm everywhere on social media. You can find me on Facebook. My favorite place on social media is my reader hangout. It's called the A.L. Jackson Reader Hangout on Facebook. It's a group, and it's just like an intimate place where we talk books and post inspiring things, and it's just a really positive place to go each day. Like it's kind of like my safe place. So I love it there. I'm on Instagram at A.L. Jackson Author, TikTok, A.L. Jackson Author. And then I do Pinterest as well, because I have like all my Pinterest boards on there for my inspiration for my books.
Okay. Yep. I'm going to have to go check that out. Group. That is awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us people are saying in the chat, it's a great group. Thank you so much for joining us. I am going to go get your workbooks.
Awesome.
And I'm going to join your group. So thank you so much.